Imagine waking up in a world where every sunrise brings with it a tapestry of ancient rituals, vibrant social customs, and the steady pulse of an empire that has flourished for millennia. Welcome to ancient China, a land of dynastic splendor, philosophical wisdom, and remarkable innovation. In today's video, we journey through a typical day in the life of an imperial citizen. We will explore how this citizen navigated family duties, work, education, and leisure in a society governed by Confucian values, imperial edicts, and centuries-old traditions. The setting: ancient China and the imperial system. Ancient China was a vast and diverse land, ruled by powerful dynasties that spanned thousands of years. The imperial system, steeped in tradition and bureaucracy, provided a framework that influenced every aspect of daily life. Under the reign of dynasties like the Han, Tang, Song, and Ming, society was organized according to strict social hierarchies and governed by a complex legal code. The emperor was considered the son of heaven, a divine figure whose mandate legitimized the order of society. Confucian principles permeated every facet of life, stressing the importance of filial piety, loyalty, and social harmony. Citizens, whether they were scholars, merchants, farmers, or artisans, were expected to adhere to these ideals. The rigid class system, though challenging, offered each individual a defined role and purpose. This structure provided stability and order in a rapidly changing world, where innovation, trade, and cultural exchange flourished alongside tradition. In this context, the life of an imperial citizen was one of duty and honor, a constant balancing act between personal aspiration and societal expectation. Understanding this setting is key to appreciating the rhythms of daily life in ancient China. Social structure in daily life. Ancient Chinese society was built upon a well-defined social structure. At the top were the scholar officials, who had passed rigorous examinations and were entrusted with governing the empire. Below them were the landowners and wealthy merchants, followed by commoners, primarily peasants who toiled on the land, and finally, the lower classes, including artisans and laborers. For the average citizen, daily life was a blend of work, family obligations, and community interactions. Social harmony was paramount, and individuals strove to maintain proper conduct in every aspect of their lives. Respect for elders and adherence to ritual were more than mere customs, they were considered the bedrock of society. Family was the cornerstone of life. Multi-generational households were common, and each member, from the young to the elderly, had roles and responsibilities. Education was highly valued, particularly for boys who aspired to join the ranks of the scholar officials, though both genders learned about morality and etiquette through familial teachings. A typical day for an imperial citizen. The day would begin at dawn, with the first light signaling the start of both work and ritual. An imperial citizen would rise early, often before the sun fully broke over the horizon. In many households, a simple alarm, such as the crowing of a rooster or the distant sound of temple bells, signaled it was time to wake. Before leaving the bedchamber, the citizen might engage in a brief moment of meditation or recite a few lines of classical poetry, practices meant to cultivate inner calm and align one's spirit with the cosmic order. Cleanliness and order were not neglected even in these quiet moments. A basin of water and a cloth would be used to freshen the face, symbolizing the washing away of the night's impurities. After the initial moments of quiet reflection, the household would come together for the morning ritual. In many families, particularly among the more affluent, this included a brief ceremony to honor the ancestors. An altar in a quiet corner of the home would be adorned with incense, fruit, and symbolic offerings, a practice rooted in the belief that familial bonds extended beyond death. Breakfast was a modest affair, often consisting of congee, a rice porridge, steamed buns, or simple porridge accompanied by tea. The meal was not only about nourishment, it was a moment to share news, discuss plans for the day, and reinforce familial ties. Once the family rituals were complete, the citizen would prepare for the day's labor. A typical urban citizen might then step outside, either heading to a local market or traveling on foot or by rickshaw to a place of work. In rural areas, the journey might involve a walk along dirt paths that wind through villages and farmland. Throughout these morning hours, the city would begin to stir, with the sounds of commerce, conversation, and the rhythmic clatter of daily life filling the air. Work and economic life. For those who had achieved the prestigious status of a scholar official through the imperial examination system, the day was largely devoted to public service. These individuals worked in government offices, drafting policies, managing local affairs, and maintaining the administrative machinery of the empire. Their days were filled with meetings, writing, and the careful reading of classical texts, all while maintaining a demeanor that reflected the Confucian virtues of benevolence, righteousness, and propriety. Scholar officials lived by a strict code of conduct. Their interactions, whether with fellow officials or with commoners, were marked by courtesy and a sense of duty to the state. Every word and gesture was considered a reflection of their education and the honor of the imperial court. Artisans and craftsmen, whether working in pottery, silk weaving, or metal forging, contributed through their specialized skills. Their workshops were places of creativity and precision, where traditional methods were passed down through generations. The quality of an artisan's work was a matter of pride, and their products were often sought after both locally and across regional markets. Merchants, though sometimes looked upon with a degree of suspicion by the more conservative classes, played a crucial role in the distribution of goods. Markets bustled with activity as vendors sold everything from fresh produce to finely crafted goods. The daily routine of a merchant was marked by negotiations, long hours on the bustling streets, and a keen sense of economic strategy that ensured their survival in a competitive environment. Regardless of one's profession, every imperial citizen was subject to the meticulous tax system imposed by the state. Taxes were collected not only in coin but often in kind, crops, labor, and even services were part of the economic exchange that sustained the bureaucracy. While taxes were a constant burden, they also funded public works such as irrigation systems, roads, and granaries that benefited the entire community. Culture, education, and family life. Confucianism was more than a philosophical system in ancient China, it was the moral compass that guided daily conduct. From a young age, citizens were taught the virtues of filial piety, respect for elders, and the importance of education. These teachings were not confined to formal schooling, they permeated every aspect of life, dictating how one behaved at home, in the marketplace, and in the corridors of power. Educational pursuits were highly valued, and even common families invested in the education of their children. Memorization of classical texts, participation in local academies, and the guidance of learned mentors were all part of the intellectual culture. The ideal was to cultivate a well-rounded character, one that combined scholarly achievement with moral integrity. The family was the heart of society. Households were often multi-generational, where grandparents, parents, and children lived under one roof. Every member had a role to play, elders offered wisdom and guidance, while the younger generation contributed through labor and learning. Family life was governed by a series of rituals and customs. Meals were communal events, where respect for each other was shown through the careful sharing of food and conversation. Important decisions were made collectively, with the opinions of the older members carrying significant weight. Festivals played an essential role in breaking up the monotony of daily life and reinforcing cultural bonds. Celebrations like the Lunar New Year, the Mid-Autumn Festival, and the Dragon Boat Festival were observed with great fervor. These occasions allowed citizens to take a break from their daily routines, enjoy traditional performances, indulge in special foods, and engage in community activities that celebrated the rich tapestry of Chinese heritage. The arts were highly valued in Imperial China, and leisure time was often spent in the pursuit of cultural refinement. Reading classical texts, composing poetry, and engaging in calligraphy were common pastimes among the educated classes. Even those who were not formally schooled took pride in the oral traditions of storytelling and the recitation of folk tales, which passed down wisdom and humor from generation to generation. Food, diet, and daily meals. The day's meals in Imperial China were a reflection of the local agriculture and seasonal availability. Breakfast was typically simple, congee, a type of rice porridge, accompanied by pickled vegetables or small servings of tofu. For those living in urban areas, street vendors might sell freshly steamed buns or dumplings, offering a quick, warm start to the day. Lunch was often the main meal, where families gathered to enjoy a variety of dishes. Rice was the staple, served alongside vegetables, meats, if available, and tofu. The culinary traditions were rooted in balance. Flavors, textures, and even colors were combined to create a harmonious dining experience. Meals were seen not only as a time for nourishment but also as an opportunity to practice etiquette and appreciate the artistry of food preparation. Dinner, which might be lighter than lunch, was a more intimate affair. In urban settings, dinner could also be a social event, with neighbors and friends gathering in tea houses or local eateries to discuss the events of the day. The shared enjoyment of food was an expression of community and a moment of respite from the day's labors. No day in ancient China would be complete without tea. More than just a beverage, tea was a cultural ritual, a means of cleansing the palate, stimulating the mind, and fostering conversation. Religion, philosophy, and spiritual practices. Ancient Chinese society was a tapestry woven from multiple spiritual and philosophical traditions. Confucianism, with its emphasis on social harmony and moral duty, provided the ethical framework for everyday behavior. Taoism, with its focus on living in accordance with the natural order, encouraged simplicity, spontaneity, and a deep appreciation for nature's rhythms. Buddhism, introduced from India centuries earlier, offered a path to spiritual liberation through meditation, compassion, and mindfulness. These three traditions coexisted, often complementing one another and influencing the ways in which citizens approached life's challenges. Rituals, whether for prayer, meditation, or the celebration of festivals, were common. Temples and shrines dotted both urban and rural landscapes, serving as places of solace and community gathering. A fundamental aspect of spiritual life in Imperial China was the veneration of ancestors. Every household typically maintained an altar dedicated to deceased family members, where regular offerings of food, incense, and prayers were made. This practice was not merely about remembrance, it was an essential expression of filial piety, the belief that honoring one's ancestors was both a duty and a source of continued blessing for the living. Evening and nighttime rituals. As the sun set over the bustling streets and quiet villages of Imperial China, the pace of life began to slow. Evening was a time for reflection, family gatherings, and the winding down of work. After a day filled with labor, study, and social interaction, citizens returned to their homes to partake in the communal rituals of dinner and rest. The evening meal was a family affair, often more relaxed than the midday banquet, yet equally important as a time to reconnect. Stories of the day were exchanged, and lessons were imparted to the young. In many households, this was also the time for quiet study or the recitation of poetry, reinforcing the cultural values that had been instilled from childhood. While modern conveniences like electricity were absent, ancient Chinese citizens made use of oil lamps, candles, and moonlight to navigate the darkness. These modest sources of light not only provided practical illumination but also created a serene atmosphere for evening activities. Bedrooms were typically simple, adorned with basic furnishings, a woven mat or straw bed, and sometimes a simple screen for privacy. Even as the day's energy waned, the importance of order and cleanliness persisted, with nightly routines ensuring that one was prepared for the challenges of a new day. If this exploration into a day in the life of a Chinese imperial citizen has intrigued you and broadened your understanding of ancient China, please like, share, and subscribe to History Facts and Mysteries. By delving into the details of everyday life in the past, we not only honor the rich legacy of human history but also uncover lessons that can inspire us in our modern lives.